Three Grots in a Vox is intended for a mature audience. This means there will be crude language and discussions of adult themes, especially if we're talking about tactical marines or Gabriel Seth. Viewer discretion is not only advised but encouraged. All opinions are our own and often given for humorous purposes. Any advice is given largely for entertainment purposes and would probably be ignored. But if you do learn something useful, count it as a win.
I was going to say, thank God we've got the pink text.
It's been a while, hasn't it?
We like the pink text. Is that going to be our intro? Thank God we have the pink text.
So I've got a question. So he's got these LRM missile pods on his shoulder. Yes. Why are random missiles missing from it? Why don't you just fire the 4 and then 4 and then 4 and then 4, or just fire them in columns across? They're just random little missiles dotted from here and there are just I
don't know.
Missing. That's a bit weird. I
haven't got a complicated, good answer for that. I don't know. Does that happen in real life with missile boat things? I don't know. The only way to find that out would be to find someone who knew about that. So if somebody knows the answer to that, please answer in the chat, or won't be chat now, but
we will lose
the comments
and minutes of sleep over this question. It's true.
I will not care. I will probably just phone up Kata at the end of this and just ask him. Yeah. That's the sort of ridiculous nonsense that he would know. Right, so now we've just done such an awful intro. This is how professional we are. Welcome to a Grotty podcast episode. This is an actual episode. This isn't a live stream. We are pre-recording this because for once we are talking about something that we can pre-record. And we're going to talk about Battletech, not 40k. But we might as well almost be talking about 40k.
Tell you something.
Go on.
You may.
I won the starter box of Battletech at the 40k tournament and gave it away to Kev because I thought I'm not going to have time to play that. So if you tell me at the end of this episode that I really want to play this game now, I'm going to feel like a right idiot.
Will you tell me at the end of this episode if you really want to play this game or not?
Okay.
And then we can tell you if you're a right bloody idiot or not.
Yeah, basically. It's an interesting one, this. So this is a huge, huge universe. This is like if somebody says, summarize Warhammer 40k Epic and Kill Team in one couple of hour episode, and you'd look at them like you were mental because you can't really. Well, you can, and we shall. So we've got a lot to cover, but I want to give you an overview to begin with. I've done this in the wrong order because the first thing we should be saying is it started in the 80s.
Okay.
And that means that the artwork is absolutely chock full of greatness like this.
Greatness, yeah. That's what comes to mind when I look at this.
80s. Big hair, big ridiculousness. I've thrown on the mech warriors fighting their underwear because it was the 80s, and they decided, well, the mechs have got a heat problem, and they gets really hot inside there, so we have to wear cooling vests.
Or very little else, yeah.
And nothing else generally. So it's like pants, cooling vests. And then when somebody pointed out later on that some of the people everybody in it is jacked, like massive 80s muscles, then the answer to that is, we genetically engineered them to be massive.
Obviously.
And unbelievably attractive, which is very, very funny. Back to the point though, it's giant robots. Over the editions, there's been more or less emphasis put on the robots. It's supposed to be about robots. But there are flyers and there are vehicles and there are infantry and things like that as well. But the core of the game is the big scary robots. I say big, I think they're 5 mil scale.
It's set in this robots. I thought robots are piloted themselves and had their own computers and stuff.
Yeah, all right, get out.
Okay, I'm sorry. I'm not sorry.
All right,
sorry.
They're not robots. They're mechs because.
They need pilots. They need David Bowie to pilot them.
Oh, we're 5 minutes in.
They're not robots because they do have a mech. I think actually that's not entirely true. I think some of them are slave to computers and things like that. But largely the point of it is it's a big robot that has a pilot. It's a robotic suit. Some clever interface things go on. You've got this neural interface helmet that looks bananas, and I'm really annoyed with myself. I forgot to put one in there because it makes you look like a banana.
So they don't just drive it with wheels and sticks.
No. You have a neural interface helmet. Think Titans in 40k.
Okay, all right.
There are buttons as well.
Or the Matrix, where you plug it into your brain, sort of thing.
You kind of plug it into your brain, it acts like you should act.
Right.
It's a dystopian future where technology has gone backwards for a period of time. It's a very expensive hobby because it's a miniatures game that started in the 80s. So it's basically 40k.
But
Not mechanically.
Nowhere near as successful either, it seems, but
nowhere near as successful either. But it is more successful than you would think. It is. It's huge. It never. Now, if nobody had guessed this, we're based in Britain, and this never really became a huge thing over here. It's much bigger in the States. Much bigger in the States. Because we had Warhammer, and they didn't really have Warhammer. They had this, and then now they have Warhammer, and they've put this in the bin. No. This has had a troubled life. It was, I think, something about 9th owner or something now. It's been passed around from company to company.
Yeah.
Different people own different rights to different bits of it, and they're slowly all being consolidated down to the current owner, which is Catalyst Labs. But even Catalyst Labs is made up out of most of the artists from the older Battletech. They've all got together, started a company, and been trying to buy all the IP back in one place. But it's still really spread out, and it always has been. You know, a lot of the design of these old mechs, some of them were just bought in or licensed from Japanese anime and things like that in the 80s to save time and money, rather than designing their own. So it had this really kind of eclectic beginning, and it hasn't really changed from that. So that's kind of the overview of the universe.
Okay.
But I thought I should probably start out with some lore.
Some relatively. I know a bit of stuff about BattleTech because I've interacted with the universe. I've played the video games. I've played MechWarrior Online. I've played the BattleTech turn-based strategy game video game. I've read some of the books because they were written by a guy who wrote some Star Wars books that I really liked, and then went and read his books he wrote for BattleTech as well.
Yeah.
So I've got a vague idea what's going on, but I've just never played the miniatures game.
Well, that's all right. But we'll talk about how to play the miniatures game later.
Yeah.
It's almost like that's the episode. Ooh. John, I could see you with this hairstyle.
Yeah, in the 80s.
Well, it's more like I don't know, next year maybe. I don't know.
I think you should grow it out.
Yeah.
I also want to know why there's a skeleton coming out of the
gun,
out of the smoke,
or why he's got weird little blue lines randomly scrawled across his face and his neck.
I think he's a clanner, but we'll get to that later. Okay. Right. Let's carry on. So I thought we should start off with.
Is he biting his lip in a coquettish fashion?
He is. So,
okay. All right.
Sexy. It's the 80s. He's probably wearing makeup as well. He is wearing makeup.
The 80s was.
Probably very similar to yours. Right. So I've paraphrased the lore and background to this game. As a bit of a disclaimer, I'm about to do this entire history from memory, which means that it's going to be absolutely riven with mistakes.
Okay.
Also, it's a lot like 40k in that the sheer breadth of lore. Remember, this IP has been owned by multiple companies, sometimes at the same time. So the lore is like
right. Okay.
Everywhere. There is so much of it that at times it makes 40k look coherent and straightforward to understand. Okay, this is bananas level of stuff, because one of the things they do, which is also very similar to 40k, is everything is canon until it isn't. And they leave that in there. So every video game, every TV thing, every movie, everything that's ever made is canon until we'll come to things like that later.
Wow.
Until it is directly proven otherwise, everything is canon. And what that means is it's so broad and so balmy, like the Mech Warriors fighting their underwear.
Okay.
I don't know where that originally came from, but they've just kept it in because there's no reason to take it out.
Does that mech's head in the picture look like Darth Vader's helmet?
Yes. Yeah. Again, we like to still look at R2-D2 down there as well being repaired. I don't know if you can see where my mouse is pointing on this one or not.
Oh, yeah. Oh, okay. Yep.
I thought you looked a bit like Galvatron, or no, was it Unicron?
Yeah.
No.
No.
Okay. And I don't know why he's got literally a plug on his back. But whatever.
Yeah.
Why not?
All right. Okay.
So this is just a preface to me saying that this is a very loose background, and I'm going to make mistakes here. So
okay.
Let me have a swig of beer because this is a complex one.
All right. Strap in.
Right. Feel free to interrupt. You would anyway. So broadly stays the same as human history up to kind of the 80s when things change around a little bit. We have another Cold War. Cold War goes badly, gets hot, lots of bad stuff happens, some wars, blah, 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 lots of other things happening. Eventually, though, humanity does get to space, starts a colony on Mars in about 2017, and kind of spreads out slowly. In 2108, I've picked these carefully. I've curated my points on my timeline here.
Okay.
2108, you got the first jump ships and jump ship technology, which means that the first manned trips to Alpha Centauri or something like that are made. And at that point...
So a jump ship is something that can travel faster than light, basically.
Yeah, basically.
Right.
At that point, humans start to spread. And they spread out and spread out and spread out. And you get this kind of growing from terror across the universe, across the galaxy.
Yep.
This goes about as well as you'd imagine, because after a while they start getting very far away from Terra, and the places on the edges of the territory get quite upset with each other and with Terra themselves. They like being ruled by Terra, so they declare independence and everybody goes to war. This goes on for some time. Great houses from Earth spread and claim territories in the galaxy, and they all go to war.
Yep.
More war happens. And at this point, what's important to note is whilst they've discovered a way of faster than light travel, they haven't got a way of faster than light communication. Now, this becomes very, very important to the story because this is the age of the warship. Effectively, how war works at this time is you build the biggest battleship you can, you load it up with as many nukes as you can, and then you fly it to somebody's planet and you blow it up. Because there's no faster than light communication. So that means that the moment, or the first anybody knows that they're about to get hit is when the nukes land. So it works like this. You build a big fleet with as many warships as you can, and then you just fly into somebody's territory and blow up a planet or two.
Okay.
Now, this is getting a little bit out of hand. They're just popping up all over the galaxy and exploding each other. There's no rhyme, there's no reason, and there's no possible way to kind of prevent it either, because you can't send messages faster than the ships and the missiles can go. Now, this becomes really out of hand at a planet called Tintervel, which was an entirely agricultural world full of completely innocent humans that all get nuked.
Right.
This is... At this point, some people realize that this is a problem. So they come up with something called the Ares Convention, which effectively means you're not allowed to nuke people.
Okay. All right. Yep. Good. Cool.
And wars have to be fought on the ground. And territory has to be won in what is effectively a fair fight.
Okay? And everybody buys into this? No.
The periphery, which is the area around the inner sphere of kind of colonized worlds. So that's the ones that told Earth to fuck off earlier on. Don't agree to this.
Right.
So they go and get nuked. Because if they're not going to agree to not nuke people, then we'll just nuke them.
Okay. Yeah,
but that's considered fine.
There's a certain logic there.
That's fine, because they should have agreed. Oh,
dear.
This carries on. By this point, Earth, Terra, before somebody goes, oh, Terra, yes, I know. Terra is the proper name of Earth. Earth is just a name for soil and things like that. Yes, it has a name. It's Earth. It's not. It's Terra. I'm going to use them interchangeably. Don't call me up on it. I know the difference. Right. I also know the sun isn't called the sun. It's called Sol. And our moon isn't called the moon. It's called Luna. You don't need to tell me in the comments. Now, Terra has become basically pointless at this point. Its natural resources are largely expended, and the big houses are fighting it out in the galaxy. I'm going to show you some maps later.
Maps.
But maps, we like maps. But it's become a bit irrelevant. And the current Lord of Terror has decided that he doesn't want to be irrelevant anymore.
Okay.
And his name's now escaping me because I told you I'm doing all this from memory.
Bob. Navian. Steiner.
House Cameron.
Okay.
And House Cameron and the Lord of Terror are not very happy about this, so they start putting in some money into technologies. Now, coincidentally, a few technologies have been developed around this time. The first one being a kind of neural interface helmet, which is very, very important because it allows lots of decisions to be made by the brain without having to press buttons to do it. So it means more complex things can be controlled.
Yep.
You've also got great big leaps in power generation and smaller fusion plants. And also something called myomers, which are kind of artificial muscles, which means that more power can be packed into a smaller place.
Okay.
Now, all of these things come together in 2439 with the development of the first Battletech.
Sounds like Skynet and the Terminators.
Kind of. Now, the Mackie was the original and kind of exploded onto the scene with a battle demonstration of the Mackie, crewed by a psychopath, versus a load of the Meg, because at the time, because it's got to be, all wars going to be fought on the ground now, so it's just big tanks versus big tanks.
Right.
So this one, what became the battle mechs, fighting off this group of tanks, and it destroys them all. In fact, the last one, it walks over and starts stamping on to prove a point of how ineffectual they are. Now, at this point, the great houses suddenly shit themselves because Terror have got this weapon that so far surpasses anything they have, and they're not selling. So that lasts for about 5 minutes before one of the great houses managed to steal the plans, and then all the other great houses steal it off the first house that stole it, and after about 5 minutes, everybody's got mechs.
Okay.
But at the same time, the Teran hegemony, so the around Terror, do have a bit of an edge. Only a little bit of an edge. Some more happens because it's the future, but they keep hold of their edge. And it's with this, the idea of the Star League is formed. Now, the Star League is the Terran hegemony basically saying, we'll share our technology with you if you sharpen do as we tell you. And at this point, because they're
together in beautiful harmony, because
Terrans are so far ahead of the other ones, they sort of agree to it, and thus starts a golden age, where all the kind of inner sphere are all working together for a while. Technology's jumping forward, huge leaps and bounds. Humanitarian things are happening, and everybody's very, very happy, except for the periphery, because the periphery don't like the Terrans very much. They are a lawless bunch of bastards.
This goes on of humming villainy you will never find.
Exactly. Think Outer Rim in Star Wars.
Yeah.
Now, this goes on for a good couple of
the universe in Firefly.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Okay.
So this goes on for quite a while, actually, a couple of 100 years now. But it's around this time a man named Amaris. Now, Amaris is the leader of one of these periphery realms, and he talks to the head of House Cameron, who's a young man at this time. He's a very young man. He's a bit naive. And he says to him, look, I can bring you the periphery. And he does exactly what he says. You know, he's a powerful trading state out in the periphery, and he's bringing the others with him. And he's helping them to accept the rule of the Star League and join the Star League. Most of them. Not all of them. Most of them.
Right.
Some of them aren't joining in, and they're just not playing ball. So, you know, he says to Cameron, well, you're just going to have to go out there and crush them. You know, people are getting a little bit restless anyway, so a good war is how we tie everybody together. So,
right, okay.
Cameron goes, yeah, okay, that's brilliant. I'm going to send my top general, a man named Kerensky, out there, and he's going to stomp on those periphery states because we're far more powerful because we're the Star League.
So that's the first name that is familiar to me from the things that I've read and
Kerensky
experienced over the years.
His name comes up quite a lot, so we'll talk about him a bit later.
Right.
Now, Kerensky takes his Star League forces out to the periphery, and what should be very small kind of guerrilla, hearts and minds kind of campaign very quickly turns into a horrible guerrilla war. with suicide bombing and suicide nuclear bombing. It all kicks off because of a riot, and a little mech decided to post some civilians with a flamethrower or something. It was minor, nobody really remembers.
Okay.
But effectively, what started out as a small thing ended up being this kind of general war with a big chunk of the periphery. And it shouldn't have been. It should have been an absolute curb stomp. But for some reason, it wasn't. And it's draining more and more of the resources out to fight in the periphery, away from the core. But that's okay, because Amaris is there with Cameron, and Amaris is going, yeah, don't worry about it. Look, I'm going to reinforce all your inner garrisons. So don't worry. Look, I've brought them in. Look, we've got this whole mech divisions. Here you go. Have some more mech divisions. And we'll garrison all of your worlds, because I know the Star League are busy out in the periphery. And this goes on for a while until Amaris shoots Cameron in the face with a gun, because he's Cameron's best friend, and he presented him with this beautiful laser pistol, and just to show him how it works, he shot him in the face.
Yeah.
And then it turned out that all those mech divisions in the center were his, and now he was in control of the core of the inner sphere.
Yeah, in a move that nobody could have seen coming.
In a move that nobody could have seen coming. And Kerensky definitely wasn't saying, this fella's dodgy, don't trust him.
Yep.
Well, this led to a problem, because Kerensky was supposed to now bow down and die, or give up and join back in with his with the now new rulers of the inner sphere. But he didn't. What he actually did was he went hard, captured a planet in the periphery, fortified it, built up his forces, and then came back. Now, this took a long time. This took a good 20 years for him to fight his way from the periphery all the way back to Terra, kick in the front door of the Imperial Palace, as it were, with his mech, and go and tread on Amaris.
Okay.
It took a long time. The big great houses wouldn't help, because they weren't that fond of Cameron anyway, and they didn't particularly like Amaris, but whatever, we're not going to help.
And fast and light is fast and light, but it's still not instantaneous. There's a hell of a lot of travel.
No, and it was a slog to fight his way back through all the defenses that he designed.
Okay, cool.
But he did. And then all the great houses promptly removed him from command.
Okay, all right.
And they said, we need a new Star League leader. And they started to fight about that. As they do.
Yeah.
Kerensky at this point just gives up, really. He's got this massive battle-hardened but battle-weary army.
Yep.
Who are now by far the most experienced, toughest, most well-equipped, best equipment that's existing. So he goes to his buddy, William Blake, who runs what is left of the Star League communication network and the faster than light communications, which now do exist by this point. And he says, look, we've got no place here. This isn't what we fought for. And Blake goes, no, we can change it. And he goes, I don't think we can. So Kerensky gets all of his divisions back together. He's not in command anymore, but they're all not going to listen to that. So he gets his whole army together, the whole remainder of the Star League Defense Force, and he says, I think we should leave. And most of them agree with him.
They all say, yes, boss.
They all say, yes, boss. So he does. He just up sticks before they realise the entire Star League Defense Force has up sticks and left. And not left by a little bit. It's left the inner sphere. It's left the periphery. It's left beyond human exploration. Yeah. They've just gone.
They leave the borders of known space.
This leaves a bit of a power vacuum. You can see I'll start jumping forward in time here a little bit.
Yep.
This leaves a bit of a power vacuum. All the great houses immediately go back to war with each other with the First Secession War. The Ares Convention goes out the window and they will start nuking each other again.
Right. Okay.
Technology goes through the floor. Eventually, this ends for about 5 minutes, and then the second Secession War starts, and technology goes even further. This lasts for about 5 minutes before the third Secession War.
Okay.
In 3028, the Grey Death Legion, which is a series of books, which is one of the areas that is quite good with the lore and things. It's a series of books, actually finds something called the Helm Memory Core, which kind of reverses some of the decline of technology, because it's basically a memory core full of Star League era technology, because by this point, they're basically throwing stones at each other. The battle mechs that are left are the simplest ones. most advanced technology to develop them has been lost. Most of the factories have all been blown up, and they're kind of reduced to sharp sticks and serious words. It's around this time they start developing the idea of melee weapons for battle mechs.
Okay, yeah. Like there's a giant mech with a bloody great big axe that walks up and hit you.
Called
a hatchet man.
Yes. And there's ones with claymores and all sorts of crazy stuff.
Okay, I never saw this.
That's wild.
Okay.
Anyway, shortly
how big's a mech warrior sized claymore? Is it about as big as the mech?
Yeah, pretty much.
All right. Okay. Good.
They're used by a group called the Northwind Highlanders quite a lot because this game is nothing but on the nose.
Okay.
They all wear tartan. That's the mechs. The mechs are tartan.
Yeah. The mech warriors are naked because it's really hot in there.
Anyway, so shortly after that, the Fourth Secession War ends and technology starts to improve, and it's kind of a spark of renaissance. Technology starts to go back up. The quality of life in the sphere starts to improve slightly, and then all of a sudden the clans arrive.
Right.
And everyone's sort of like, there was a little bit beforehand. There was something called the Wolf's Dragoons, which turned out were clan scouts, but they were acting as a mercenary group during the Fourth Secession War.
Right.
But largely, all of a sudden, these massively advanced, super technological, crazy warriors, genetically engineered to be better than you, turn up and just start to kick the crap out of everybody.
Yep. And
their technology is far advanced. Their skill in battle,
their guns are better, their arms
everything about them is better.
Yeah.
Except that they're right cocky bastards, and it turns out that that's where Kerensky's lot ended up. They went out to nowhere, founded a new human civilization, had a few wars of their own because humans and specifically Capellans, but we'll get to those later. But eventually they kind of settled everything down, come up with this really rigid caste system,
right,
and came back with some super advanced technology. Now they start kicking the crap out of everything, calling batchals on everybody, which is kind of their idea of an honourable challenge, because that's how they solve everything in the plan of space. They challenge you, and then if they win, they get all your stuff. They run around doing that for a little while, pretty much kick the crap out of everybody, and then Comstar comes onto the scene. Now, Comstar are the remains of the Star League Defense Forces communication network. Now, they're the only people maintaining the hyperspace network, which is the only way of faster than light communication. So they've suddenly become incredibly rich over the last few hundred years.
Yep.
Because they're the only people that control the communications for everybody. Everybody uses Comstar network. They're basically BT.
Don't say they're AT&T, aren't they?
Yeah, if you're in America, they're AT&T. If you're in BT, if you're in Britain, they're BT OpenReach. So BT OpenReach to challenge these great and powerful clans to a fight. And the clans are like, I'm sorry, what?
Who are you? Why do we care? Yeah.
Why do we want to fight the telephone network? And they say, look, we rule this place effectively because everybody pays us their phone bill. So if we lose this fight, then we'll step aside and we'll step out of it. And, we'll shut down the network, we'll give you all control, and you basically win. And the clans go, brilliant, yeah, we'll do that. And they all start bidding against each other for the clan that gets to have the honours of fighting Comstar. And Comstar say, right, we're going to come to this planet, Turkey, and we're going to put some cities on it, and we're going to defend these cities. And if you can take the cities, we'll give up. And the clans go, yeah, brilliant, we're going to do that. So they start bidding on what equipment they're going to use. And the way they bid, it's not how high, it's how low. I reckon I can take that city with only 3 men and a bag of chips. It's kind of that sort of bidding.
Yep.
The rule, they do their research. They check out the current general of Comstar, and he's a fella who's got no history of combat whatsoever. So they think, brilliant, okay, no problem. And they agree to it, and they attack Turkey, and they get fucking demolished. Not by a little bit. They get bogged down and wiped out. Every single clanner that pretty much landed on that planet gets absolutely wrecked. They might have the superior technology, but pay your phone bills. These guys do not fuck around. And in this case, they absolutely trashed them, because it turns out that general that didn't have any combat experience had loads of combat experience, but changed his name.
And huge amounts of stuff.
And they just had huge amounts of stuff because nobody had really been paying attention to what Common Star were doing, which was, well, they didn't lose all their stuff from the Star League. They didn't get involved in any of the succession wars. And it turned out that they had a ginormous, incredibly well-equipped and powerful army. So the clanners got their ass kicked and they had to withdraw for 15 years. And I say withdraw, they weren't allowed to advance any further for 15 years. So they couldn't come towards Terra, basically.
Okay.
In those 15 years, however, they had a few of their own wars, cocked a few things up, but pretty much cemented their hold on everything outside of that area. 15 years later, they're allowed to advance again, but don't, because they've managed to screw themselves so much with inter-clan warfare that they're no longer in any real state to do so.
Okay.
One of the clans gets wiped out completely, the Smoke Jaguars. The rest of them try and eat each other. By this point, they're pretty much settled down on the outer parts of the inner sphere. Some of them have joined with some of the houses. The houses are all trying to kill each other, and things calm down for about 5 minutes before the Word of Blake turn up. Now, Word of Blake is what happens when your telephone network decides to have a little bit of an inter-company split. It's a bit like when BT split into BT and BT OpenReach. Now, BT OpenReach were the Comstar that we knew about. They were very secular, and they did their jobs. Whereas the original BT really become kind of weird religious nutcases, believing their original leader was a kind of saint.
Okay.
It turned out that they didn't like the way that new Comstar had become secular and decided to attack them, take Earth, and basically kick Comstar off till they're irrelevant. Everybody goes into civil war and everything goes to shit.
Right.
Does this sound like 40k where basically everything's gone to shit?
It sounds more like, to be honest, it sounds more like an extended series of Game of Thrones with less magic dragons and no undead beasties at the edge of the galaxy to unify everyone. Yeah.
And then briefly, it all fixes itself again. For about 5 minutes before we have the blackout, which is when all the telephone network burns itself out and you can't have fast and light communication again.
Right.
And then it all goes back to shit. And that's kind of where we are now. Now, I want to show you this in visual format because I know I've just jabbered on for like 10 minutes or some.
Yeah, stuff. Okay.
So, visual format. This is where we start. In 2235, we have the Teran Alliance, which is around Terra. Yeah. And that's about where things are going to get eventually.
Okay.
By 2570, we have the Star League. The Terran hegemony is back where Terra started, and the galaxy split into 5 great houses.
Yep.
You've got the Lyrians, the Draconis, the Federated Suns, the Capellans, and the Free Worlds League. And they're all kind of joined in happiness of the Star League. And everything around it is nobody cares because it's hell.
Right. What do you mean hell?
Well, it's the periphery.
Outer Rim.
Why is that? Okay, so it's just like
instead of lawless and
and right, okay.
We don't care about them.
Not civilized. Fair enough.
Exactly. 50 years later, the Star League has completely collapsed, and we're split up in fairly similar lines. The terrain is sort of like basically everyone's just eating a bit of Terra, and Terra's become completely pointless again.
Okay.
Each one of these is kind of vaguely based around racial / nationalistic tropes.
Yeah.
The Draconis Combine are kind of vaguely Asian, Japanesey style. The Lyrans are kind of a bit Germanic. The Federated Suns are a little bit American. The Free Worlds League is a bit Middle Eastern, really, I suppose. And the Capellans are vaguely Chinese, and they're busy backstabbing each other all the time. That's why their area never really grows. A couple of years later, suddenly have Tikhonov Republic. Now, this is the end of the Fourth Secession War, just before the clans arrived. The St. Ives Compact, they've just run off and broken away from the Capellans. The Federated Suns and everybody else is still pretty much where it is. But you've got these 2 small breakaway factions. Then shortly after that, we get another one. The Commonwealth joins together with so basically the Americans and the Germans join together briefly. The Rassel Hague group, which are effectively Norwegians, arrive on the scene. This lasts for a little while, and then the clans turn up.
Right, yeah.
And eat them. Poor Rasselhag. Brilliant story comes out of that. One of the main sort of Rasselhag worlds are invaded by the Ghost Bears. And Ghost Bear challenged them to a game. And the Rasselhag go, we win this. We challenge you to American football. Thinking, nobody will know how to play that. And apparently it's quite big there. Apparently Norway, American football. Who would have guessed?
Obviously.
So Ghost Bear go, yes, okay, brilliant. And then they turn up with their 7-foot tall, basically Space Marines to play. And it turns out that it's their national sport. Absolutely annihilate the Rasselhag team. But they have such fun doing it, although they do take the planet, that eventually the two, Ghost Bear and the remains of Rasselhag, become one nation because it's over their mutual love of American football.
Okay. Cool. Yeah,
Why
not?
So yeah, this all goes to shit. Then World of Blake goes and ruins everything again, and the clans just sort of pretty much sit there for a while. Smoke Jaguar get eaten completely; they die around this time. And the Lyrans and the Federated Commonwealth backstab each other for a bit and become separate again. There's a lot of backstabbing. You've got this kind of chaos march and disputed territories, and like, all this sort of stuff is basically everybody's stabbing each other, and it's completely lawless mush in the middle now.
Okay.
Then you get to here, which is near enough where we're at the moment. You'll see that the Smoke Jaguars are all gone, right? Because they got killed by their own people. And it doesn't bother even showing Cloud Space because that's all just on fire right now. And that's pretty much where we're at the moment. And that is a summary of the lore of about 900,000 books.
Okay.
Well, you did a good job of condensing it, but holy shit, what were they smoking when they wrote these books?
Oh, some of them are just bananas.
I don't think, from what you described it, they didn't have any kind of plan whatsoever. They just wrote and then.
Well, yeah, because you've got to remember that this has been owned by so many different companies, and different companies own different parts of the timeline.
Yeah.
Okay.
So at certain points, there's two companies making Battletech things at the same time.
Yeah.
But they're only allowed to do it set at different points.
Yeah. Yeah, it's crazy.
All right.
This is how insanely convoluted it gets. And now I've just realised I need to go and grab something and I've forgotten it. So just give me 1 second.
I was going to say, if you're still watching at this point in the video and you are still enjoying it, then thanks for being here.
Yeah, props to you.
It sounds like 40k is mental, but this is on a whole other level.
I can, to be honest, I can kind of see why 40k takes off and this doesn't, because this is just people being shits to people over and over again.
You
Whereas
could
40k, you've got aliens
background
coming in here, and
There's
magic
no
coming in
aliens or shit
there,
in
and
this.
demons and gods and warp and stuff, and all this sci-fi stuff. And in this,
Do you want to know a fun
there's not
fan
a huge
theory,
amount
though?
of sci-fi stuff. Go on.
There's absolutely nothing that doesn't say that this is a prequel to 40k.
Yeah, that's fair. Yeah, I can see that. That absolutely could happen.
You know, humanity spreads out.
40k
technology
absolutely glosses over
advances.
the first 30,000 years. It ignores them completely.
Absolutely. So this absolutely could be eventually leading to where we get the Men of Iron.
Yeah, all right, I can see that. Cool.
Men of Iron could, and we've got knights
Yeah, true.
that use neuro interface helmets.
Yep.
And run really
And
hot.
high levels of tech that go backwards into dark agey stuff, weirdness, and trying to unify things and all this sort of crap. Yeah.
So
absolutely.
there's
Here's a
absolutely no
question,
reason that it couldn't.
When you buy a Battletech miniature, you don't get the pilot inside in his underpants, do you?
No, it's too small. You'll be able to see it.
It's too small. Okay.
5mm scale. They're really, they're big.
They'd be like epic scale people, maybe even half that, to be honest.
Yeah. Tiny. Okay.
Okay, so I do aware that I probably bored the pants off of everybody.
No,
I don't really
so.
want this episode to turn into the Tony show, but I'm just trying to cover a lot of stuff really quickly. Let's get into the games.
Okay.
Now, the game itself isn't really one game. There's a few games. So, before I do that, we better talk about some miniatures. So here's some example pictures of some miniatures. So you've got all sorts. You get infantry models. You've got some plastic mechs. You've got some metal mechs. There's a lot of metal mechs still around and vehicles. Here's an in-game shot of playing a game. You can see there's a couple of tanks flying and some mechs. They're not all painted. This is just because I was playing it earlier on today and I thought I should take a picture.
How big, say, is a Space Marine model compared to one of them?
Well, probably the easiest way to do that would
just
be
for a
to...
sense of scale.
There is a...
I know the names of like...
Space Marine.
2 of those mechs. Oh, 3 of those mechs.
So if you can see that, there's a Space Marine and there's a mech next to it. So that's a Warhammer 2C next to a Warhammer miniature. See what I did there?
Very nice.
It's a Primaris Marine there, is it?
It's a Primaris Infernus Marine. Yeah.
So it's about 20% bigger, you'd say?
Oh, if that.
Yeah, so the Marine's head is coming up to about the gun arms, give or take.
Yeah. They're not huge. And to be fair, the mechs, this is a big mech. Some of the mechs are a lot smaller.
Yeah.
I haven't got any small mechs on here, I don't think. I've only got a couple of bigger ones. There's another one there, but this is a 3D printed one.
Tony only likes them big. You heard it here first, folks.
Well, one thing I do quite like about this is whilst the game is not miniatures agnostic, there absolutely are miniatures. They're also manufactured by lots of different people, and they're pretty open to people making their own and converting them and this sort of thing. They're not quite as strict about it as they are with GW.
Okay.
So, yeah, you're looking at this table here. Now, most of those mechs are the current owner Catalysts models, but they're not the only ones they've ever made as official ones.
Is that
the metal ones are made by a different company. There is a catapult on there. Yes. Is that it? Yeah, it is. Oh, no, it's not. That's not a catapult on there. There's a Stalker, a Night Star, an Atlas. I think that's a Pouncer and a Mad Cat.
King Crab?
And no, there's the thing on the bottom left is a Pouncer.
Right, okay.
And the one at the back is a Blackjack. I think it's a Blackjack. It could be a Rifleman, actually. I think it's a Rifleman. And then you've got a couple of tanks there. I think it's Scorpion Light tanks and Alicorn. But anyway, so
let's face it, nobody cares about tanks.
Nobody cares about it. So they're pretty miniatures agnostic. They're made by lots of different manufacturers, and that's actually pretty cool. And a lot of them are really good for 3D printing. This is a 3D printed one that I was playing with.
Yeah.
And this is actually one of the models from MechWarrior Online, which is just printed.
Cool.
That's some more of them. That's just the ones that were on the shelf that we weren't playing with.
That's a bunch. They come in sets of sort of 4 or 5. Is that a bunch of jump jet blokes?
Yeah. They're called Elementals. They're clanners.
Okay.
And they go into battle in battle armor, but they're basically Space Marines.
Right.
Because they haven't got all the extra organs and this sort of thing. They're just genetically engineered to be better than you.
Okay.
And wearing battle armor that makes them really tall and armored. So, all right, maybe Custodians, I suppose, pretty a bit closer.
And they'll like jump on a mech and plant bombs on the head or something.
They've got like armored claws for ripping things off. They're really deadly to mechs. And the other fun thing is that they can hitch rides on friendly mechs.
Okay.
So you can have one of your mechs, which moves a lot faster than infantry does, running along with these guys hanging off the back to leap off and cause carnage.
Fair enough.
Elementals are brutal. They're really powerful.
So John's either gone for pee, or one of his kids is playing up, or both of his kids is playing up, or he just got bored and left.
I think he might have just got bored and left.
It's unlikely.
I mean, it's possible though.
Yeah, it's true.
There's a lot of urban mechs in this picture because urban mechs are rubbish, and that's become a bit of a community meme.
Yeah, they're like fan favourites or something. Or
they are, because they look like they're these ones behind the Elementals in the middle there.
They look like dumpsters or just bins.
They just look like bins on legs. They're light mechs, but they move very, very slowly. So they're slow moving, lightly armoured. Trash cans. But you can really massively arm them.
Okay.
So the idea was that they were developed because one thing they've got fantastically is every single mech has got a real depth of lore behind its development.
Right.
So, and a lot of the companies that make them, for example, I don't know if there's one in this picture, but one of my favorites is the Marauder. There is a Marauder in this, actually. There's a Marauder 2C in this one. Okay. Now, the Marauder was one of the original anime mechs that they licensed, but they've put a massive backstory behind its development on that. It's made by GM.
Right.
As in General Motors. Because General Motors are still around in this time.
John.
Yes, hello.
Did you?
I heard you.
Have to go pee? Did you have to go?
I heard you the whole time.
Kids,
or did
you just get bored and fuck off?
No, just Annabella was just needing like someone to stroke her hair for 2 minutes, and she go back to sleep.
I lost that bit. Okay.
I'm wireless headphones. It's just my microphone is on the desk, so you can't hear me.
That's fair.
Fair enough. But anyway, yeah. So GM is still in universe making mechs now
Things.
rather than cars.
But they like to do that from a copyright story.
Well, amusingly, a few people have contacted GM and said things like, "When are you to Fusion Engine coming out?" And things like that. And GM have replied with, "We have no current development," but they've done it in character.
Oh God.
Very happily, we're not in a position to talk about our future projects and stuff like that. It's quite.
Mm-hmm.
They've really been a nice company about it, because it's what started out as a bit of a joke, a bit, look at some of the old Rogue Trader things and names in that, where people got a bit upset and the Warhammer have had to pull all that out. Whereas with BattleTech, they've just left it all in there because most of the companies referenced have still been pretty good about it.
Good sports,
good sports, and that's
nice.
Under a lot of kudos. So yeah, that's,
how much if you were buying all them fresh? How much would that collection cost you roughly?
Let me work it out, because it's going to vary a little bit how you buy them, because there's a couple of start sets in there. But let's pretend that that's not there, and they're just bought in normal packs of miniatures.
Okay.
Then normal packs of miniatures come sort of 4 or 5 to a pack, depending on if they're Planner or Inner Sphere. Because Plan's running 5s, and Inner Sphere running 4s. So you've got, what have we got there? So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31, 32. So let's say there's about 35, because a couple of not on that shelf because they're in the middle of the game. Each pack's about 5, is about 25 quid.
All right. So
they're about 5 a pop.
All right.
The mechs. And then those tanks, metal miniatures tend to be a little bit cheaper, weirdly.
Yeah.
The tanks normally come in packs of 2 for about 5 or 6 quid for the bigger ones, or like little packs of there's little tiny ones. I think pack of 8 or something for a £5.
I was going to say a Space Marine these days for Warhammer can be as much as like $7 or $8. So they're probably reasonably well costed if they're
20 or 25 for a character. Yeah,
you absolutely don't need anything near this number, and we'll get into that in a minute. But a game of full-blown BattleTech would probably be a lance, so 4 mechs against 4 mechs.
Right. So comparative to a game of Adeptus Titanicus, which would be 4 or 5 Titans versus 4 or 5 Titans.
Yeah, absolutely. Except that Titans don't cost 25 quid for your whole army.
No, that's true. It costs more like 100 quid for a Warlord.
Each. Yeah.
50, 60 quid for a Reaver. Yeah.
So they're not cheap, but you don't need many of them.
I would say they do seem reasonably cheap, but okay.
But in comparison, I
think in comparison to GW,
but also GW kits will be twice as big, really detailed.
And multi-pose, and these just come like that. You don't build these, they come like that.
Yeah, okay.
And they're not as good, but they are still hard plastic. They're pretty good. The mold lines aren't too bad on them. Some of the older ones aren't quite as good. Some of the newer ones are a little better,
Fair enough.
Little elementals, I've got crap detail on them. They were an absolute bug out of paint. Anyway, so let's keep going, and I want to talk about the actual game. So the first game, the first way of playing this is you play BattleTech Total Warfare. Now this is kind of full fat BattleTech. Now I've got the kind of cut down rule book here, which is the one you get in the starter set.
Right.
Now this is kind of squad size game, so it's a lance against the lance, or a lance against the star. So it's sort of 4 mechs on 4 mechs, or 5 mechs. You might have a couple of lances each, but that's a huge game if you're playing like that.
Okay.
Now, BattleTech contains all sorts of units. You've got infantry, all the way through vehicles, little vehicles, big vehicles, huge vehicles, mechs, all the way up to, there's even rules to include space battles.
Right.
It's
because mechs in space get out and walk on the spaceships and start shooting at other spaceships.
Well, no, these are rules for the spaceships to be flying, a giant spaceship, because the rules are flexible enough that you can abstract them. Right. So you can still use the same grid system, which I'll get to, but with battleships, basically.
Fair enough.
It's alternate activations with priorities. So you roll off at the start of the turn for who's got priority, and then you kind of take turns and move my mechs, you move your mechs, shoot my mechs, shoot your mechs, shoot like that. It's all set up. The rules are incredibly in depth. I said this is like a cut down rule book because it's a fraction of the size, because this only covers the mechs. This only covers the mechs and not all of them, but it's got rules for everything. You know, kicking, pushing, punching. Kick attack. Here we go. A mech cannot kick with a leg if it fire both its weapons mounted in the leg. Why not? You can only damage things in the leg if you kick them in the leg, but they may fall over. It's this kind of level of detail. There are rules here for when you fall over and you get back up. If you punch someone, it's where you're going to punch them. Combat is kind of, I'm going to fire my laser. Now my laser has a range of this. At long range, it gets a +2 to hit, which means it gets worse because it's basically you've got to roll over a number to hit,
right,
on 2 dice. So you have modifiers that make it harder to hit with each one of those weapons. Each one of those weapons will have an ammunition count. Each one of those weapons will have a heat count. Your mech can dissipate this amount of heat per turn. If it moves faster than if it will generate more heat from its engines. If it jumps, it's going to generate more heat. These are all going to add up. If you go over a certain amount of heat, it might shut down. You might cook your pilot. Weapon components will start to overheat and they won't work as well. We're talking about incredible levels of crunch here.
All right. So that is going to be really fucking hard to get into and digest and learn.
It depends on who you talk to about this one, because that's some people love that. Because remember, there's one starter set they do. It's only got 2 mechs in it.
Okay.
So if you're only playing with 1 or 2 mechs, then that level of detail, it's very detailed, but you've not got a lot to deal with. You're not dealing with a squad here.
Okay.
You know, so tracking the number of missiles you've fired and things like that, people really like that level of detail and crunch and things like that. You know, when you take damage, you might get damage to the gyros in your left hand because you can't use your grips anymore. So you can't. It's that kind of granularity that makes it very, very. It's a simulation rather than an abstraction.
Okay.
It's played on a hex grid, so mechs will move along a number of hexes. They can walk, they can run, they can rotate because facing is very important.
Yeah,
because a lot of the tactics involve using faster mechs to get behind the big scary mech, where he can't turn around and shoot. And it plays generally on kind of flat hex maps. That you can get some 3D terrain to put on that map, but it's not really designed for it. The maps are fixed. Usually you can make your own, but they've got different elevations because different heights are going to affect things as well. It's very, very in-depth. But again, if that's the kind of simulation game you're looking for, then it's very, very popular for it.
Yeah, cool.
Moving on then. Here's an example. This is the record sheet for one of your mechs.
Fuck me.
This is for a catapult. You've got, if you get hit, this is where you might take a critical hit. So weapons and things that you get hit. Now, this one's got a lot of roll agains because it hasn't got any hands or anything like that to damage.
Right.
You can see on the top right there, you've got the armor. So each individual area has got its own armor values. You chip away at the armor before you start doing damage to the internal structure, but that can do component damage as well. Then you've got the heat at the bottom there. As you heat up, that's going to have different effects to your things. So if you get to a heat level of 19, you have to roll a dice. If you roll under a 4, you explode because you've blown up your ammo, and that part of your mech's going to like blow up an arm or something like that.
Yeah, all right.
It's really cool. It's really, really detailed. Weapons, you know, you've got cluster tables. If you start firing missiles, because they're going to shrapnel different areas and pepper chunks of the map, you see where's the general area you hit, but where's all the shrapnel going to hit.
Okay, awesome.
So it's really, really cool if that's what you're looking for in a game.
Yeah.
The second major way of playing it is called Alpha Strike. Now, I've got the quick start rulebook for this one, but interestingly, the quick start rules for Alpha Strike is all the rules for Alpha Strike. Except for some of the really specialist units, but not much. I've got the proper full rulebook, and it's almost no thicker. This one is the one where you have more company size, so you might have 5 or 6 mechs on one side against 8 or 12 on the other side. Now, there's less units. There are still vehicles and that in here. There are still infantry, but it's really mech focused. Infantry vehicles are a bit more of an afterthought on this. You haven't got all the crazy other stuff. It's still alternate activations. It's much more abstract. Rather than having individualized weapons, you just have short range weapons, medium range weapons, long range weapons, and you'll have an amount of damage you can do at that range.
Okay. So they're focusing on the mechs. They've trimmed down the specificity of the rules. They've basically gone for what makes it more cinematic and more cool.
To an extent, yeah. Movement. You don't have the hexes anymore. You can. There is rules to play on a hex grid, the same as there are actually rules to convert hexes to non-hexes for regular Battletech, but it becomes quite convoluted. You can play this on a hex grid because it removes arguments, but it's a bit more like a mech can move 10 inches. You get a tape measure and you move it 10 inches, 40k style.
Yeah.
You tend to use 3D terrain, buildings and that to hide from line of sight. Mechs are much, much simpler. You've got an armor value and you've got an internal value. Once your armor's gone, you start taking real damage. That's it. You've got maybe some points, like 5 or 6 points of armor, 5 or 6 points of internal before you're dead. And your guns will have I've got damage 6 at short range, which means if you get hit by the short range weapon, you immediately take 6 points of damage. There's no armor saving throws or anything like that.
Oh, okay.
You take the damage. Okay. Because the argument is if you've got more armor, you've got more armor points.
Okay. Yeah, they factor in that way.
Any hit will reduce the armor.
Mm-hmm.
And eventually you'll wear through it. There's no I've just constantly rolled 4.
Yeah.
So therefore I never take any damage. It doesn't work like that. This is a much simpler system, but it does remove that complexity. And a lot of people don't like it. The guy I was playing with earlier on today, Mark's met him as well. He hates Alpha Strike. Cannot stand it. Far too simple. Just doesn't like it. Loves the crunch.
Fair enough.
He feels that it takes away a lot of the tactics when you can't be doing things like trying to overheat your opponents and stuff like that. I get
that. There are times you just want to bury yourself in the details and
absolutely
every last little thing and just immerse yourself in it. Yeah.
And because of the sort of free movement up to a point, the facing stops mattering so much.
Mm-hmm.
So there's less skill involved about running a light mech behind a heavy mech and staying out of its line of sight kind of thing. It's much harder to do that.
I suppose comparatively, you could say 40k was more complicated when it had all these really, really detailed points values for all of the guns and upgrades and things.
Yeah.
And now they've simplified it all and just made it, you just have 1 points value. It's quicker to play, but takes a lot of the joy and detail out of it.
It's a little bit like combi weapons now, where now combi weapons have a stat for just combi weapons. This one, you don't have a stat for your lasers and your auto cannons. You just got a stat for short range guns.
Yeah. Okay.
I
can see the both.
So rather than having a sheet like that, here's a couple of the sheets for Alpha Strike, and you can see how much different it is.
Oh, God.
I've got a Warhammer and I've got a Timberwolf, so a Mad Cat, and you've got short range, so you've got SM and L, that's your damage you can do at those ranges. The +0 means you don't put a modifier, +2 means you add 2, +4 means you add +4, so it makes it much harder to hit at longer ranges, basically.
Yep.
Heat only comes into play when you've got some special abilities that you don't really need for the main game, so they're not even in the main rulebook.
Right.
They're more if you're playing like a bit more RPG style, which we'll come to later. And heat only comes into place. You've got level 1, level 2, level 3, and shutdown.
Right.
Because heat only comes in when you've been hit by something that's a heat-causing thing, which is incredibly rare. Like I say, it's really RPG mechanic. Or if you decide to overheat, you can overheat your weapons.
Mm-hmm.
So you see the one on the top left's got an OV value of 1, which means you can basically spend a point of heat to do 1 point extra damage.
Okay.
And the bottom one has got an OV2, so you can spend 2 points to do 2 more points of damage. So the Mad Cat is bananas amounts of damage.
Mm-hmm.
If you look, the armor on the top one, where it says A, it's got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So at short range, one hit from the Timberwolf will annihilate all of the armor on that Warhammer.
Okay.
Ouch. But you also see the cost of the Warhammer's 40 and the cost of the Timberwolf is 62. It's a lot more.
Pointed appropriately. Yeah.
Pointed appropriately.
Cool.
So it's much, much simpler. It's much quicker, but you lose that granularity.
Sure, it's still complicated. It reminds me a lot when you were speaking there about when Warhammer used to have firing arcs and used to have -1 to hit when you shoot your pistols at full range and stuff like that, and +1 to hit when you... Warhammer's lost a lot
of the complexity,
to become a competitive game,
and to become accessible as well.
To put it into perspective, though, I played a game with sort of 4 mechs on 4 mechs of regular Battletech, and it took about 5 hours.
Jesus, wow.
Now, admittedly, that's because we're looking up rules and things like that, and you can get that down, especially if you're not using cluster tables and stupid cluster weapons, which I was.
Okay.
But the same game with the same mechs with Alpha Strike took about 40 minutes.
All right. Yeah, that's fair.
So
it depends what you want out of your game.
It depends what you want out of your game. No, I really like Alpha Strike because it means I can play it much faster. And it does sound complicated, but it really isn't. You know, all of the rules for the whole game come to... I'm just sort of working it out. Because you know when you're looking through the rule books and things like that, that's all fluff, that's all fluff, that's all fluff. That's the whole rules for the game.
Okay.
You know, that's not a lot of pages. That is 12 pages.
Cool.
For every rule to play the game.
Good place to start, I guess, or a good place to learn, right?
I like it for that, but again, it depends on what you want. If you want the complexity, then this is not the game for you. Like I say, some people hate this. And amongst kind of the Battletech community, there are real strong opinions on Alpha Strike and whether it's a thing, because it's much younger than the original Battletech, which is a very massive game. So there's a couple of different ways else we can play it. So the third kind of core way is this, Interstellar Operations. Now, so that's a core way. It's not really. It's one book, and it's kind of super abstract. It's more about planet-sized operations. Right. It's not about the miniatures. You can have miniatures, but they're kind of tokens representing battalions.
Okay. So for the Warhammer comparison, you're talking like Mighty Empires sort of thing?
Yeah, kind of. Okay. You know, it's beyond abstraction of epic. So I say it's not particularly supported, but that's not really fair, as was pointed out to me earlier on. It is supported. It just only has one book, and that came out last year. It's not supported. It doesn't need anything else. It's really just a game in of itself.
That's good.
But I haven't played it, so I can't give too many opinions on it. It's a thing. It exists.
Cool.
The last way is the RPG. Now, the RPG kind of is quite clever in that it ties in with standard Battletech and Alpha Strike. As in, you're playing mech warrior pilots, mech warriors and things like that, and you do RPG things, you know, politics and buying and selling and running your mercenary company and taking on missions and stuff like that, and you can do things that affect... But the combat is regular Battletech or regular Alpha Strike.
Cool.
Which is really cool, actually. Because you can tie it together, so your D&D group have got this kind of campaign, and then your mechs are in the combat and doing the things.
This mech is literally your mech with your character inside
and your name, and you're buying parts for it, and
that's cool.
And that is really, that is really, really cool. They've done a few different versions of this over the years. There's lots of backstories and fluffy campaigny things you can do. It's really cool. I haven't played it, but I genuinely want to.
Sounds good.
The only complaint I have is that I don't want to play regular Battletech for the combat sequences because they're too slow. I want to play Alpha Strike, and nobody else in the gaming group does. They all love the crunch because they haven't got kids. So they can afford 5-hour games.
It reminds me of I played boarding actions, and we covered it last week on the channel, and all the other guys were like, why do you waste your time playing boarding actions? And I was like, well, because sometimes I would like to play Warhammer and not have it take 4 hours. You know, like sometimes my wife would like to not have me disappear for 4 hours.
No, I totally get you. Sometimes you can only hire the hall for 4 hours, and that doesn't give you enough time for setup and takedown.
No. Which is genuinely why I absolutely love this, because I can play a whole game in half an hour sometimes if you're playing quick, and that I've got time for. I can do that when people come and visit me and I've got a few minutes, you know. I'm not going to get interrupted every 5 minutes and forget what I was doing.
Cool.
So that's your kind of main ways of playing. Now, if you wanted to get into this game, there are some ways you can get started. The first way is with the starter sets. Now, there are 2 starter sets available. The one on the left is a Battletech starter set. That comes with some mechs. You'll see there are 7 mechs there. But what it also comes with, and you can see them at the back there, are standees for the same mechs.
Right, okay.
So if you want, you can play, and the scenarios, like the starter scenarios and stuff like that, might have mech on mech, and they're very happy if you use standees in this game. That's what I was saying earlier. It's almost miniatures agnostic. If you want to use standees, use standees. There's been some additions to the game where that's been what's used. So you can use pretty much what you want to represent your mech.
Okay.
Which I quite like. So you get your start set, it's 60 quid. You get a couple of those hex mats that go in there. You get a nice little mini novella, which is very nice. A little rule book, which is that one.
Yep.
And you also get the pilot cards for some pilots to use in Alpha Strike, which I thought was quite nice. And then if you look at the Alpha Strike box, it's a bit more expensive because you get a lot more mechs. You've got 5 clan mechs and 8 Inner Sphere mechs there, because Inner Sphere mechs aren't as good as clan mechs.
Mm-hmm.
You get all the cards and that you need to play them. You get a little bit of cardboard terrain. You get some like various little sheets and cards and a little novella as well. And you get that rule book.
Feels a bit weird that the lighter rules version of it, the more casual play one, is like a third more expensive or half more expensive than the full game.
It's got loads more mechs in it.
Yeah.
Because it's a game for using the same models, but you use more of them.
Fair enough.
That's basically it, you know. A game with just the mechs in the starter set for Battletech, it's a 5-hour game.
Yeah.
Whereas using all of the mechs in the Alpha Strike set is a hour game.
Okay.
Which is why it's more expensive, because you just got more models.
Are these the prices you would pay for this game if you visited our Element Games affiliate link?
If you visited our Element Games affiliate link, you get about 5 or 10 quid off, depending on what one you're looking at.
And you get to support the channel as well.
You get to support the channel as well.
Brilliant. We love that.
Which makes it a little bit cheaper. Now, it's not the only ways to get into the game. These are just some starter sets. You could also buy the rule books. Now, these are nice hardback books.
Mm-hmm.
Or if you go directly to Catalyst Labs themselves, you can buy the digital versions, 13 quid for the Battletech one, and a little bit more for the Alpha Strike one, because it's a little bit bigger.
Okay.
Because there's only one Alpha Strike rule book, whereas Battletech Total Warfare has a few books, depending on if you want to bring in vehicles or bringing in other design rules and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
So you can buy them. They come as a PDF. Now, something I need to mention now is, if you're in America, this is great. If you're in Britain, they are hard to get hold of. I don't have the hardback book of Alpha Strike. I've got the digital PDF, and it's not because I didn't want the book. It's because it was out of stock for ages.
Right.
They don't stock very often. And when they do, they tend to be in small numbers and they go out of stock. Now, I looked on Element today as we record this, and both of them were in stock, but God knows how long that will last. The same goes for the models themselves. What's available is a little bit variable. Now, they come in boxes. They go from about £20 to about £30, depending on how many mechs are in them.
And how big they are and how much volume.
No.
No?
No. I know it sounds weird. Clan mechs always come in 5s. All the clan mechs are £25 RRP.
Right.
So those little tiny infantry, you got 5 bases of those. It was £25. This big 5 scarier mechs is also £25. I know. The Inner Sphere ones are about 20-ish, £22, and then they do a Comstar one, which has got 6 in it. Right. About 30, and then occasionally they do like a mercenary company or something, which might have a few more, or things like that. Now, a lot of these, you can get all the mechs in Britain, but you can't get all the box sets in Britain.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a few special ones. There's one silly one with 12 urban mechs in it that you can buy.
Yeah, but the game's permissive as hell, so you can use standees or 3D printing or whatever the hell you want.
Exactly, so it's not really a big deal. So I just thought it was worth pointing out. If you wanted to, you could get started for the PDF, which is a PDF. It's not locked, and I'm not encouraging piracy, and I wouldn't, because it's not very expensive, but it is quite convenient because it's a PDF, so you can stick it on your phone and you can stick it on your tablet. I've got it on my Remarkable.
Yeah. If it's worthwhile and it's that cheap, then support the people who make the cool stuff. Yeah.
Don't copy it. Yeah, and then you can buy some mechs, or you could 3D print some mechs. But again, they're not. The only reason I've got this one, which is 3D printed, is they don't make a plastic model of this.
Mm-hmm.
When they do, I'll probably buy it.
Plus, as you said, they come whole, complete as they are. If you want a custom mech with a different looking gun or a different looking anything on it, going 3D printing is
one of the things that they've done, which I really do appreciate, is they try not to release the same mech twice.
Mm-hmm.
Now, what I mean by that is the same mech, I mean the same loadout. So whenever they do a revision or a new starter set, and there's a few like classic mechs like the Atlas and things like that, and people want an Atlas in their starter set, but maybe you bought the last starter set. Why would you buy the second starter set? It's got the same mech. No, it'll have a different Atlas in it with a different loadout and a different pose with different model with different stuff on it. Now you can use any of the loadouts or any of the mechs interchangeably, and they make a point of saying that in the rulebook.
Okay.
Don't worry about what guns your mech model's got. It's whatever version of it you say it is. But it means that if you did buy a later box set down the road that happened to have a new version of a mech in, it would be new. You wouldn't end up getting duplicates.
Good.
Which is really nice because it means that there is a reason to buy, I don't know, the XYZ mercenary company who happens to have some different mechs in there, and you'll have different loadouts and stuff like that and represent a bounty hunter or a special character or whatever.
On the one hand, I appreciate that. On the other hand, I would want a mech that exactly has the right loadout that I want to run at any given moment.
Well, that's right. Where these models come apart if you heat them up.
Okay.
And you can just 3D print an arm. And there are companies out there that will 3D print weapons to swap on them, or you could nick it off another model and you can Franken mech them together.
Okay.
And they will come apart.
Yeah.
And there is a whole community.
They're not molded as one piece. They're molded as multi-pieces, and they just come pre-glued, basically.
So you can take them apart and you can modify them. But if you wanted specific official mechs for specific loadouts, you are probably bang out of luck because that's just not how the game works.
Fair enough. Okay, cool.
Yeah, each one of these mechs might have 10, 15, 20, 30, 40 loadouts.
Based on all the mixing and matching you can do on all the different guns and all the different hard points.
And all the you're looking at
all the different places they can be mounted.
You're looking at like 600 years of development for some of these mechs. They've changed a bit in that time.
Okay.
So it's just not viable to sell those. So that is just about it for the main games. But of course, Battletech is a huge franchise. And it pops up in other media. Other media that actually in Britain we got long before the board game, really. I had no idea this even was a board game until 15, 20 years ago, maybe.
Okay.
My introduction to it was from video games.
15, 20 years ago. That would have been, what?
Early 2000s?
1990s, 1980s?
Yeah, we'd be lucky, wouldn't it? Well, like 2005, 2006.
Yeah.
It just makes you feel old, doesn't it?
Shut up.
Right, okay, so there is other media. Now, one of the ones that Mark's already mentioned is books. There are thousands of novels, a bit like 40k novels in that they are of mixed quality. You'll recognise some of the names there. Michael Stackpole.
That author is the chap.
Yeah, Aaron A. Anderson, I think, wrote some as well. I maybe should have might be a Dan Ablett one or so.
Stackpole, I know from the Star Wars X-Wing novel series.
And that's why I've brought him up, because I love the Star Wars X-Men novels as well.
Oh, yeah.
So there are loads and loads of books. There's just a couple of the ones that I've just grabbed off of Element, actually, and got some pictures. There are video games. That's the best one from the 1990s.
Okay.
By far the best one. It's now abandonware. It's a bugger to get it to work, but you can, and it's amazing if you take the time. It's an RTS. You've got the second. No, this one isn't the second best one, but this one was a PC one that apparently is a bit maligned, but I really liked it. Okay. I really liked MechWarrior 2. That's the one that got me into it, but I couldn't find a decent high-res picture of that. There's the Battletech, which is
now that fairly, is the one that I adore.
It's a fairly accurate translation of the game onto a PC turn-based strategy game.
Yeah. I really, really like that one. It's great.
If you like turn-based strategy games, it's a good one.
It's also got...
It's not just a turn... Like?
Sorry?
Does it play a bit like XCOM or a bit like... What does it play like?
Yeah, it plays a lot like XCOM, but the mechs are like sort of sized as your teammates in XCOM, give or take, and you got the terrain to go around, you got scenarios, you got missions. Then you can go away and you make money from doing the missions, and you can outfit your mechs, repair your mechs, buy new mechs, buy upgrades. Your pilots get XP, they get to level up, you get to travel from system to system, take this job on, that job on. You could do a story mission, you could just like mercenary your way through the galaxy. It's a great game. I love it.
As someone who's new to this franchise, I do have a question though.
Go on.
Why is the why is the quote-unquote hot chick not wearing her underpants and just a cooling vest.
This game came out about 5 years ago, and they were cowards.
they had progressed beyond such puerile bullshit.
No. I want everybody to be hot, you know. I want every dude on there to have oiled abs. Right?
I'm picturing Arnold Schwarzenegger in like the Running Man for some reason.
Schwarzenegger in little pants, because that's how they used to draw them.
So
every man would be wearing Y fronts, a cooling vest, and have massive rippling biceps.
That lady.
Every woman would have massive hair.
Is the dispossessed noble princess of a planet who has hired you to go and fight and help take back her planet from the people who've overthrown it, all this sort of stuff, by killing her father or something.
Okay, so she doesn't have a cooling vest. How unfortunate.
So she would just get cooked if she tries to go in a mech. Another great. So if you play the Mega Drive or the SNES, you're not left out. There are Mega Drive and the SNES games. Both of these are really good. If you ever play Desert Strike, it's a bit like Desert Strike, but with a mech. Yeah. It's hard, but awesome. It's like top down, and you're walking around just stomping on shit. A lot of fun. The Xbox users, you're not left out of the fun. Mech Assault. Now, this was a bit abstract and a little bit more action-orientated than the old Mech Warrior games. Mm-hmm. These are brilliant games. There's one problem with them, which is they are very hard to emulate, especially the second one.
Okay.
So getting a working copy of this is very hard because the licensing agreements means that it will not work on the modern Xbox One's backwards compatibility. So even if you have the discs, which I do, they're really hard to play without an original Xbox. But if you can find a way of doing it, you should. They're really, really fun.
Okay.
Genuinely good games. Not taking the piss. If you really that modern, you have to play modern things. This is the current one. It came out in about 2017, 2018. There's a big standalone expansion coming out towards the end of this year, which is about the clan invasion. This one is set just before the invasion of the clan. You're a mercenary company. You fly around the inner sphere, doing different missions.
It's all modern graphics. It's all really solid.
It's all modern
gameplay.
graphics. It's all really solid
built
gameplay.
off the engine that they use for MechWarrior Online, which is really popular. Yeah. And it's primarily co-op.
It is. If you can play it solo, but it's fucking hard.
Then you have AI mechs running your
AI mechs are a bit thick, and mechs are quite vulnerable to getting their armor chewed off, as you saw with the armor points in the game. And then they become very expensive if you start getting your Gauss rifles blown off it. So they are hard if you want to play them solo. If you play them co-op, they are still hard, but
fun, because you're walking around in a giant walking tank with your mates blowing shit up. It's great.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. And you just work your way mercenarying around the galaxy. They've had a lot of expansion packs to it at this point. They've done a lot of fixes to it at this point, and it's really quite fun. And if you are a filthy casual, there's loads of mods out there to like up your income or make it so your Gauss rifles don't keep blowing off. If you're a single player person like me, you can sort of modify it and improve the AI a little bit and stuff like that. So it becomes a little bit more playable. That is, of course, if you're playing on PC and not if you're playing on the consoles. If you're playing on the consoles, you're just screwed if you want to play on your own.
So a Gauss rifle in MechWarrior universe is basically a kind of a railgun.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah.
But they are a bit explosive and very expensive. Mm-hmm. So there are loads and loads of options if you want to play some video games. The current two, the Battletech game and this one, are both solid games, both worth playing, both not too expensive. MechWarrior 5 is actually on Xbox Game Pass, which is...
Yeah, if you want something free to play, then MechWarrior Online uses the same engine as MechWarrior 5. It is a free-to-play PvP game where you just go in, you have a mech, you level it up, they do... microtransactions for purchases for mechs and aesthetics and stuff. Yeah. And you just go in, you have a fight, you go out again. You go in, you have a fight, you go out again.
So yeah, that's the thing. I haven't mentioned that there because I forgot about it, to be honest.
That's right.
I did play it for a while, and I know Mark played it a lot as well, but it wasn't. I'm not a multiplayer gamer, so I never got really huge into that.
Normally I'm not, unless I can guarantee a bunch of people who are my friends are playing at any one moment. I won't just jump into it and pug anything because I hate pickup groups. They're crap.
Yeah, and terrible free-to-play mechanics upset me.
Oh yeah, there's that as well.
Okay, so that's the main games, but we're not finished yet because there is also TV show. And
this is so bad.
This is the Clanner. This is from Clan Jade Falcon, and he's calling his Batchal, which is some of the most corny, appalling dialogue you've ever heard. No, it's brilliant. Believe me, it's complete with CGI combat sequences with mechs.
Mm-hmm.
Quality dialogue. Must be early 90s.
Okay.
Awful dialogue. And some pretty appalling racial stereotyping as well, which is very 90s now.
And very bad, yeah.
The best thing about this is if you go onto YouTube and search Battletech TV series, the entire thing is on there. And you can watch every episode of the Battletech TV series. Now, the other awesome thing about this, which I genuinely do like, is what I mentioned earlier. Everything is canon.
Right.
Including this. Which, now, in order to make that work, because it does do some liberties, it's entirely an in-universe propaganda TV show. The way they've spun this and kept it in canon as the game has moved on and things have changed and that, is they've left it in there as a popular children's television show in the Inner Sphere.
So Comstar filmed it and recorded it and broadcast it out across.
And the characters in this are real characters that are written into the fluff, have novels about them, have become great leaders of houses and stuff. And this is the propaganda propping them up as their leaders and showing how they earned their right to be your king and things like that.
Right, okay.
And there's still, even new stuff that comes out today will reference bits from this TV show.
Fair enough. Right.
Which I think is a fantastic way of dealing with it.
Like fan deep cuts, basically.
Yeah.
Cool.
Which is just brilliant. It's full of that sort of stuff. Fan service is just ridden all the way through this, every one of their books, every one of their things, which I do genuinely really like. So that's pretty much it. I've decided to put this slide on here because there are some places to look if you wanted more information. The Catalyst Games website is very, very good. That's where you buy the books. It's also where you buy the PDFs. They've got loads of information. There's loads of free downloads. So there's a free scenario for the RPG in that you can download. There's free rules for Alpha Strike and standard Battletech that you can use as standees to get the hang of the game. There's loads and loads of stuff on there. Two of the big manufacturers for the metal miniatures that are still around is Ralpatha in the UK and Ironwind Metals as well.
Yep.
On YouTube, you've got loads of channels, but my personal favourite is the Black Pants Legion. And the Text Talks Battletech series are really, really funny, incredibly well researched, and they commission loads of original art as well, which is fantastic.
Cool.
And I learned a lot of my history from them, so any mistakes are not their fault. They're my own memory. Goonhammer run regular articles on specific mechs and which ones are good, and they look at more of the competitive side of it, because there is a very strong competitive and tournament side to this, because of course there is. Because
nerds take games deadly seriously.
And the Goonhammer articles are extensive and very, very well written, if you prefer a print medium. Online, there is something called Megamech, if you Google that. And Megamech is the entire game of Battletech and campaign system that you can play online with your friends or single player and download it onto your computer. And it is Catalyst are perfectly aware of it, and they're pretty much happy with it, because it's sort of really just a fan game.
Yeah.
But they've loaded in.
They're not in a position where they're being precious with it, because they're not. Yeah.
No.
Okay.
There's also, I should have mentioned this on there, loads and loads of websites that do the record sheets for different mechs.
Yeah.
Because you can make your own, but then you'd end up with them looking all pretty similar. Whereas there are people that use proper artwork and stuff on that again. And then you can just print off new record sheets for different variants of mechs.
Custom D&D character sheets in a way.
Absolutely. There's loads of those out there if you want to look for them.
Yeah.
And then the last place is, if you want us to talk about it, we will. If people like this sort of content and they want us to go into depth into a different area, please don't let it be lore, because there's too much of it and I'll die. But we will talk about more of it if people are interested. So I think that pretty much covers it.
Awesome.
Doesn't it? Have I missed anything out? Probably.
Well, you tell me. You're the person doing it. I don't think so.
You've
covered all the stuff I know about it.
What I can say is, I've played it a lot over the last few months. I prefer that one to that one, because I like the fact it's quicker. But it's a really, really rich universe. They're really nice miniatures.
And once you've got one set of models, you can basically play both as well. Anyway,
You can. It's exactly the same models, and if you buy a set of models, it comes with the rules for both.
Yeah. Cool.
So you can play what you want. Yeah, I've liked it. It's been a lot of fun. I'm going to continue to play it. I'm going to try and find a way of playing the RPG of it. And it's been a nice, interesting break from 40k.
What do you think, John?
I feel a little bit sad that I gave the miniatures away for free, but I just don't know if I have time to do it. I think my next game I want to get into and actually paint the miniatures and stuff is Hero Quest, because I feel like my daughter is approaching Hero Quest age.
Yeah.
And it's like 3 dice for attack, 3 dice for defend. It's very simple, isn't it?
Let's just say theoretically you had all the time in the world and it wasn't an issue.
I would like to dive into the lore because it's batshit crazy.
Oh, the lore is brilliant. There's so many books, like novels and things. If you're into like Star Wars extended universe, old universe, whatever they call it now, it's very similar in that it just goes off. And because they've decided everything is canon, it's bananas. It's absolutely bonkers.
I was going to say the Alpha Strike version, though, sounds like something I could pick up and play with my kids. Which
it's nice and simple. That's why I like it, because it's quick.
Yeah, and I think I love huge, stompy battle mech robot death machine things. So yeah,
it didn't seem too expensive as well. And my kids got to learn to paint somewhere. So if they learn to paint on cheaper models in Games Workshop, that'd probably be a bonus, to be honest, wouldn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. The starter set for Alpha Strike is brilliant for that, because it's like a load of mechs. There's some cool ones. It's all the rules. It's all in a box. Even comes with a few little buildings and that to use as terrain.
Yeah,
which I quite liked. I think genuinely, if the lore in the background, look up those Tex Talks Battletech videos, John. They're great. They're really long, some of them, and it just goes into the history of different areas and stuff. They're fantastic videos to watch.
So when you first mentioned you were getting into this and playing this about 6 or 9 months ago, or however long it was, I've been keeping a loose eye on the Alpha Strike box set version of the game just to see how much it is and whether or not I'd be getting into it. And it's ticking in the back of my head. I'm curious.
It's a fun one. I haven't gone all in on it because I bought the Alpha Strike box set.
Oh, I just remembered a version of Battletech and MechWarrior. What is the difference between Battletech and MechWarrior?
Okay, that's an easy one to answer. Battletech is the original game. MechWarrior is the name of a spin-off set of video games.
Okay, fair enough. Cool.
That's it. And MechWarriors are the pilots in it, but in the MechWarrior games, you are a pilot.
So the version of MechWarrior or Battletech or whatever it was that I played was in the early noughts. And that was done by WizKids, and it was a HeroClix version. It had these little rotating clicky bases.
That's because
they were slightly bigger scale.
They were. And they called it Dark Age.
Yeah, MechWarrior Dark Age.
And that
I don't
was
know when
because
it's set, and I don't care, really.
It's set. Do you remember when I said everything goes to shit because Comstar happens and then the Word of Blake and all that religious crap goes on?
Yeah.
That's Dark Age and stuff.
Okay, fair enough.
But this is what I'm saying earlier, because that was running concurrent with standard Battletech, but they weren't allowed to use the Battletech name.
Right.
And then Hasbro own bits of it because they own some of the original mech designs from the Japanese stuff. And Microsoft own a big chunk of it.
They made the video games initially.
And they ended up with the chunks of the license left over from FASA, who originally... It's just the IP was such a mess, but it is now all steadily being consolidated together. The license for the video games, MechWarrior, is still owned by Microsoft, but Microsoft is pretty generous with it. And they don't... So Battletech, the game that Mark likes, was unlicensed.
Mm-hmm.
But Microsoft said, we quite like it, so we'll leave it.
No, fair enough.
And it's now licensed, if that makes sense. They've retroactively gave it a license.
Yeah.
They've not been pressured with it at all. The same as like the Mega Mech thing. Technically, Microsoft could go after that, but they're not.
The guy who ran the studio, Hairbrain Studios, that did the Battletech turn-based strategy game, run by a chap called Jordan Weissman, who I understand was one of the original founders of FASA and Battletech and Shadowrun as well. Yeah.
Could well have been. Shadowrun is also owned by Catalyst. If that's
Microsoft seem like a good company in that sort of sense.
Well, I don't know about that, but this area here, I've not seen them behave too dickishly, but
okay.
I'm not in the industry and therefore don't really have enough knowledge to properly comment on it. It's like things like I like my Game Pass. I've got Game Pass. I pay for it, and I feel I get good value from it. But I also know that really screws over a lot of little developers.
Microsoft have a really good public-facing perception
offering as well,
and PR engine going for them. So,
and for a consumer point of view, they do offer a good product for a.
But hey, anyway,
but they're not so nice on the back end, supposedly. But again, I don't know enough to know about that. So I think that's pretty much it.
Awesome. I'll keep looking out for maybe a deal on a copy of Alpha Strike and see if we can get a hold of it and give it a go.
It's a fun one to play quickly. And like I say, the Alpha Strike box, I bought the Alpha Strike box and then I've bought a couple of other little bits. But not because I needed them, but because I wanted them. And that's a good sign to me.
Absolutely, that's fair. I mean, the Alpha Strike one straight away says like the slightly more easy to get to learn and play quicker and less complication coming into it from scratch. Which is
I don't mind the loss of crunch, meaning that there's a slightly less tactical depth when it takes me half an hour to play.
Once you've bought into it and you've learned the basics, you can step it up if you want to.
You can if you want. And like I say, a lot of people just genuinely prefer it. So so there is a little bit more I've put in here. I remember this.
Okay.
And that was, I just thought it'd be cool to get some of the old art. Because some of this art is bonkers.
The fuck is that thing on the left there?
It's a locust.
You think that's a locust?
It is. You think
the stilt AdMech sniper thing is weird. It
looks wicked, doesn't it?
That's so strange.
This is the 80s. Some of the art is bonkers, and some of it's really cool. So I just thought I'd put a couple of slides of just random bits of art that I found on the right while I was researching.
Cool. That thing in the egg in the background is a drop pod.
The mech on the right is a Warhammer.
Pod. Yeah.
That's the Warhammer 2C, which is like the clan version. So that's all. Then we've got another couple here. I've got a bushwhacker and a stone rhino. The stone rhino is a giant bear moth of useless, and the bushwhacker is a more modern one, which is quite cool. I just thought some cool bits of art.
Which one's which?
It's the bushwhacker's the one on the red background.
Okay.
The stone rhino is the one on the right. It's like about as big as mechs can get. It's like an ultra heavy thing with 3 Gauss rifles on the top, but it overheats immediately and then kills itself.
Right. Okay.
Some of the mechs are useless in game, and I like the fact they've left them in there. They haven't tried to balance them. They've just gone, this variant is this. And you're like, hang on, all half of its guns point backwards and don't work. Or if it fires all of its guns at once, it immediately overheats and kills its pilot. And they've just left it in. Nice. Because people won't buy that mech because it's rubbish. Not? And then when you're playing the RPG one, that might be the one you found and stuff like that. And it's just fun. They're not very worried about having some mechs better than others.
Cool.
No retcons. That's important. And no nerfs or buffs.
All right. Okay.
There's some Northwind Highlanders for John.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
With Tartan.
Yep. I like it.
I don't see any swords.
No, there aren't any swords in this one. I did notice that they haven't brought any of the cool stabby mechs. There's not enough art of that's not weird and janky. But there's one. There's a hatchet man hacking away at a trebuchet.
Yeah.
And then just, I don't know what the other one is, but it's got hazard stripes on it.
To be fair, it doesn't matter how big you are if you're getting hit with a giant fucking metal lump-axe.
Yeah.
To the head.
Some of the art is of mixed quality. There's a bit of old novel art. That was the Black Widow Company, which was like
Tales of the Black Widow Company.
Which was cool. That's one of the cooler books, but it's hard to get now.
Okay.
And I couldn't find enough. I was really trying to find some good cooling vest pictures, but I couldn't find any really good ones. So that was that. That was a bit of art I found for you.
Nice.
There you go.
I mean, it's pretty evocative.
It's cool stuff, and it's a cool setting, and they've got cool giant robots. But it is a bit of a mixed match. But Catalyst have been doing a good job of trying to kind of consolidate everything back into one coherent game. And they've done a good job of it. So I'm pretty pleased with that. So with that, it's the pile of gory and not shame. But there is some shame in this episode.
We've kept it pile of gory.
Fair enough. Tony's running the episode. It gets to be the pile of gory.
That all comes from a typo,
I made the original template
Yeah, from like 3 years ago at this point, right?
It's true.
Going
back a couple of years now.
Yeah, I spelt it wrong in the first episode, and I never fixed the template.
And nobody caught it, and nobody picked you up on it, and nobody took the piss.
Correct.
Yeah, something like that. So,
all right,
John, in the 3 months since we last did a Pile of Glory.
3 months? Has it really been that long?
November
forever.
is the last time we did a Pile of Glory.
Okay, and it's now February 2024.
Yeah.
I was going to say, I've almost finished Five Guys. Welcome to the life of having 2 kids. Enjoy having one while you can, Tony.
And you've got to respect those solid silver gun barrels that they've got as well. Yeah.
You've got to respect that because that's the correct way of doing it, Mark.
Really don't have to respect that.
Did
you see the GW article about it the other day?
If you're not going to drill your barrels, you could at least put a black dot on the end.
Well, that's what I thought. Because, like, even in that, he was like, you just put a black dot on the end. I'm just thinking, yeah, but John doesn't even bother doing that.
You monster.
Well, these guys will be finished this week. I think I'm going to try and finish them on Saturday night, get some transfers on them. They're close enough for a parent with 2 kids to say they're done. Oh, do you know what? I need to dry brush the bases as well, and then maybe just touch them up a tiny bit. But they're 90. They'll be done this week. If not this week, definitely.
Why is the sergeant the one with the heavy bolter?
Because there's no stipulation on who the sergeant. Like, there's in 40k now, the sergeant doesn't have more leadership. It's just like one guy can have a
difference. Yeah.
No,
okay.
So if there's only one left, I may as well have the heavy bolter, right?
Yeah, and it's not like heavy intercessors have got different loadouts. You can't have the sergeant can't take a sword or something.
I'm the sergeant. I'm in charge. I get the biggest gun. Fuck off.
Basically, but actually saying that in 9th edition, you were allowed to give Angel's relic to the sergeant of the squad.
Yeah.
Do you remember that? So you could actually make his heavy bolter 3 damage last edition.
Have you dry brushed the inside of their elbows, the joints?
I've washed it, not dry brushed.
Okay.
I always wash.
So you go to that length and that little level of detail, but some of the details are just nope, not doing them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because it just matches what I always did, and I guess my painting is weird, man. I wouldn't call myself a painter. I like having
definitely painted.
I bought you a set of oil paint for Christmas so that you could do some nice quick washes. And
you need to give me a tutorial. You need to give me a tutorial. I don't know what the fuck I'm doing.
We'll sort it out. We'll do a stream together, and I'll give you a tutorial on how to use oil paint.
I need to know what I'm doing.
And I will sit here and heckle while you do it.
I can buy you some oil paint too if you want.
Don't waste your money.
They are just better than regular paints for doing what we're doing.
Fair enough.
Right, okay. Mark, you've put 2 pictures here.
Yeah, they're both the same thing, and 4 of the models in it are yours.
Yes.
So I went to a 1-day event at the tail end of January, I think it was. I've forgotten now. It's been weeks. I've slept more than once since then. When I got to meet the inestimable Mr. James Gibb in person, who is awesome and a star. And to do so, I had to have an army. So I painted an army and borrowed, a third of it? Give or take? So that I didn't have to paint the entire fucking thing.
So that's what?
Tony very kindly sent me
800 points. You borrowed 800 points, give or take.
Tony lent me the 2 Vindicator tanks after painting them, and the 2 Redemptors in the background, which had already been painted prior to doing so. For me, the only model that was already painted in my collection was the Whirlwind. Everything else was already base coated, so I finished all of that over the space of about a month and a half. And it wasn't a rush, but it wasn't like leisurely either in the end. And in the end, I'm quite happy with it. Some of them are black and some of them red because I got a Raven Guard collection as well as a Blood Angels collection, and now chapter means fuck all. So I was just like, okay, I'll put some of my Raven Guard models in there. Whatever, nobody's going to care.
I think your Apothecary and your Land Raider are probably the 2 I really like the most out of that lot.
The Land Raider's the piece I feel proudest of.
You did a really nice clean job of that, and I really like the sort of like quite bright highlights and stuff on it. You've really picked out the detail. I thought that's quite good. But the apothecary, you sent some pictures of that, and the white is very, very good as well. I thought that was nice.
It's just a case of Wraithbone spray undercoat and then apothecary white contrast. That's literally all that white is, and then details on top. I'm so impressed with how well that apothecary white did.
So yeah, that's a nice little army.
Yeah,
I think you did a good job. You did loads of painting in a very short time.
Yeah,
and then like
I was
completely
very
burnt out.
focused on finishing a unit here and finishing that little bit there and getting the sense of progress of, right, I've completed more. This portion's done. I can move on to this portion. I can move on to this portion. Oh, I'm bored with this one. I'll go and touch up the details over here. Oh, shit, I've just got 10 scouts left that I haven't done anything with yet. Let's blitz those over the next 3 days. Yeah, it's good.
I think you've done well. I was impressed.
Thank you.
Okay, and then the last one is me, and I didn't get a lot done myself, but I got a couple of bits done.
And let's be fair. Let's put things in perspective here. Tony has got a really incredibly demanding and busy new job, and B, a new kid.
Yeah, free time happens to other people these days, which is sad. But I did get some stuff done. I got the Amazon finished for Mark. I did him the Boa Constrictor Star
player,
which is the snake thing. Right? I'm really pleased with how that one came out, actually, and that was his Christmas present.
It's so good. Thank you so much for that.
Then I did. Literally, Mark asked me 2 days after I'd stripped and resprayed, like with primer, my 2 Vindicators because I wasn't happy with the original paint jobs. I thought, oh, brilliant. I'm using them a bit at the moment. I'm going to give them a respray because I'm not going to any tournaments for a minute. And then 2 days later, Mark goes, can I borrow a couple of Vindicators?
Only if you've got them, only if it's not too much trouble, only if it won't put you out or cause you any issues in doing so. So Tony said, yeah, sure, it won't be a problem at all. It's absolutely fine.
So I painted the Vindicators for his tournament. And I'm quite pleased with the way they came out because they were done really, really, really quickly for me, the amount of time I've got at the moment. And I'm quite pleased with the way they came out.
How'd you do the hazard lines? Masking tape?
Yeah, pretty much. Spray. Well, let me rephrase that. I paint them yellow.
Yeah.
And there's a bit of a yellow gradient on there. Then I masked it all off. Did all the black lines, then I took the mask off and then started putting some detailing in there because I wanted them to look a little bit worn because to my mind, a big dozer blade is going to get dusty and dirty and scratched and chipped.
Yeah.
So I then weathered it down a bit.
Oh, the weathering on them is phenomenal, man.
And because I just wanted them to look a bit more, it's rare for me because most of my Blood Angels are quite clean looking.
For not taking a lot of time on them, they look bloody good, mate.
So yeah, thank you. I was quite
proud of those. Taking a lot of time to your standards, at least.
And then the last thing on there are some clan elementals for Battletech, which are little, basically, as we said earlier, kind of like jump pack Space Marines. They are very, very tiny.
I have a question about them.
Yeah.
Why have they got hazard stripes on the front of their bases?
I didn't come up with that idea. I saw somebody else do it. But in Battletech, facing really, really matters.
Right.
So the front of the hex is very important. So in order to distinguish the front of the hexes, I decided that I'm going to paint hazards on the front of all the hexes so that when you've got a model that's a little bit more ambiguous about which way it's facing.
So a mech is easy, but a little base of 5 blokes is going to be tricky.
Well, some of the mechs are really quite ambiguous as to what way they're facing.
Okay.
So, because they're like, or something like that, you know. So by saying that front's always going to be hazard stripes, it's easy to spot which way round they are.
Cool.
So yeah, actually on that page, I didn't do any of those for me, which is ironic. But yeah, I will eventually get my Vindicators back, and then they'll go in my army, so that's where that counts.
Awesome.
Yes.
So yeah, that's what I did. Not an awful lot in 3 months, to be honest.
Hey, it's not nothing, man.
But still,
it's not nothing at all. I've got one of my next new projects right here down beside me that I went out and purchased and brought home not 2 hours before the stream this evening, and it's a fucking heavy box. So I'm looking forward to.
Yo, you bought yourself Shatterpoint.
Yeah,
nice.
finally picked it up. So I'm looking forward to.
Where'd you get it from?
A local gaming store called Battleground Gaming UK, who's 10 minutes down the road. And
nice.
They happen to have it in stock.
I saw on the website they had 6 copies. They had 6 copies that they bought in before a price rise. So I figured, right, I'll go and get one of those.
Nice.
For 125 quid.
My other hobby, but I've sort of doing it for work as well, is I've started doing a lot of 3D printing. Yeah. So that's a bit of terrain for Alpha Strike that I've started to do.
Oh, cool.
Little building. So I've started doing quite a lot of resin 3D printing at the moment. That's where he came from as well. That's for
Are you aware of the Drop Zone Commander card buildings?
I am, and they look quite nice, so I might take
They're also not exactly expensive, and you get a bunch of them, and they're easy to put together and build, and then you got a ton of buildings, which is...
So I've got a few that came with the Alpha Strike box, but a load more cardboard ones that can go in that box with them is not a silly idea.
Yeah, I mean, that's what these buildings are on this shelf here.
Yeah,
they're basically epic scale, so they're going to be basically battle scale.
I kind of like the idea of building an epic table, because I've got the Legionis Imperialis box that I still haven't started with, but you can't buy anything else with it, because I've wanted the new Land Raiders if they ever come out on the drop pods, but I don't think they've ever been in stock.
They've never been on sale at all. They've never been put on sale. However, I understand the rules for both those units are in the new book that went on pre-order last weekend.
Yeah. So I am tempted still to give Epic a proper go, but the difficulty in buying things even that do go on sale, has kind of stymied my interest in going too far with it. It's a little bit like Old World. I'm really excited to play Old World. I do have the rule book, but you can't buy anything for it.
So I put this in the Salt channel on the Blood Angels Commander Discord, and the reason why I bought Shatterpoint is because I didn't buy the box set for Epic because I didn't want everything in it. I bought the rules separately for 30 quid. It's got a digital copy of the rules, which I'll run on my tablet or whatever. And I figured I'll buy the models that I want separately to go alongside the Titans I've got from Titanicus. Great. So tail end of December, I pre-ordered 120 quid's worth of Epic models and Thunderhawks and stuff from Element Games, our affiliates. And I waited. And I waited. And I waited. And everything I ordered came back into stock on Games Workshop's website and then sold out again. And I waited. And I waited. And Element still hadn't been restocked and still sending me my stuff. So, earlier this week, I thought, you know what? Fuck you. Cancel my order. Nothing with Element Games in there, absolutely. They didn't let me down. They'd have shipped it to me if they'd have had the stock. Absolutely. But at this point, I'm like, I've been waiting 2 months for this game. I've been looking forward to playing with it. You've had someone's had 100 quid of my money for these 2 months. Sod you. I'm going to buy a game that I can play and that I'm looking forward to playing, which is why I picked up Shatterpoint.
Good for you, man. Games Workshop need to get better at stocking the resellers. It's been bad this last year.
Yeah.
You know?
And I totally understand it. If they want to sell stuff, they want to sell it through their own website where they make more money. But that's very selfish, horrible business practice, and screw you.
Yeah. And
I'll buy somebody else's stuff and have this really cool Star Wars miniature game instead.
If I order something through Element, I have waited, probably like you have, because I waited forever for Dante to come in stock on Element Games, but for me it's a bit of principle. It's like I've always supported some of the third-party retailers because they give you a discount. So, but yeah, it's annoying that, I think it was the week before maybe the Dark Angels box set came out.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. I just got an email from Element saying Games Workshop have just told us we're not getting it. We're not getting any to sell online, right? They're only going to be able to sell some in the store. And as someone like me as a content creator who works with Element, then that just screws me over as well, because it's cool. Well, normally maybe on a Leviathan box, 10 people will buy Leviathan from 10 people will buy it from Element. Mm-hmm. I'll make $5 a box, so that's 50 quid. That I can put into. And probably that money goes back into Warhammer models anyway. Let's be real.
It'll go back into the channel. It'll go back into the camera. It'll go back into the software. It'll go back into the green screen.
So by them not giving any,
none of us make a profit out of this.
So it's I'm essentially our channels are adverts for Warhammer, and if and it hurts Element Games and it hurts us as well. So it's not great, man.
Yeah.
On that bit of a downer.
That's not a downer. I'm fucking looking forward to Shatterpoint now that I've got a proper set of models for them.
It has kind of pushed. This has come out of not entire satisfaction with 10th edition. I've been playing a lot more Blood Bowl, which is a Games Workshop property, and I've been having a lot of fun with that. I'm very much looking forward to playing some Old World when the Orcs and Goblins box come out. I'm definitely going to be buying that.
I've got a huge amount of focus and looking forward to playing Star Wars Unlimited when that comes out in a couple of weeks as well.
Absolutely.
That's taken up a hell of a lot of my headspace, even though I'm still crap at playing the games online against a lot of the people I'm playing against. But...
So it's kind of encouraged to play other games, and which is all good. And to be fair, I had some good fun with 40k. I played on Monday. I went to see a friend of mine and his daughter, and he asked if I could teach him how to play 40k. So
cool.
I taught him and his daughter to play a game of 10th edition using some beautiful 2nd edition models that he had from when he was a kid. A lot of 2nd edition models, because this was like 1,000-point armies on each side, and there was a lot left over. Eldar versus Space Wolves. It was a lot of fun.
And the one-day tournament I went to for Warhammer was great. It was a great venue. It was well outfitted. James was a lovely bloke. We went out for food afterwards, a whole bunch of people to a local harvester.
Mark and I are playing a tournament end of the year.
Yep. Which we're going to take some very stupid lists to.
Very stupid lists too, indeed.
When's your next tournament, John? Have you got one on the books?
We're supposed to be hosting one in May or June. Like a Plastic Crackheads /BAC tournament. We're trying to figure out a date when, like, right before the school holidays, so that it doesn't.
So that's also another 2 or 3 months away, give or take.
Probably 3 months, yeah. So probably need to figure out a date and try and book it all in the next couple of weeks. Yeah, well, we know the venue. It'd just be a case of finding out when it's free. And we think we might be able to stream some of the games from the tournament as well. So
that'd be cool.
What
format are you going for? Classic, competitive, or are you going to do something wacky like James does? Or
I would like to include Legends, because I don't think Legends breaks anything. And Andrew's very tournament. So it'll probably just be classic GT. But I said to him, if you really want to look at the state of Legends, go look at a Leviathan Dreadnought and compare it to a Redemptor Dreadnought. Because there's 5 points difference. They have the same friggin' melee weapon. They have the same ranged weapon. They have the same -1 damage.
Bring all their toys.
Yeah, exactly. And you know what? The things that have been made Legends are crap now. A good example was the Twin Volkite Contemptors. They were really good last edition, right? Mm-hmm. Now they're twin linked, so they only get 8 shots as opposed to 16. You don't do the bonus mortal 2 wounds in every 6, so it's no one's going to take that. Unless someone's just taking it because, hey, I have a Contemptor Dreadnought and I like Contemptors and they're cool. No one's actually taking it because it's top of the meta. So it's I would play...
should be more power to you.
Yeah, I would play Legends. And apparently in the Legends, I just found out this week because I was looking at it, because the Tabletop Tactics Open League, have you guys seen this? Is including Legends. The one Legends that the Blood Angels have is we have a Sanguinary Priest on a bike. Yeah, they can have a Thunderhammer and an Infernal Pistol, and you can join a bike squad. No one's running bike squads, but they are still pretty cool. Yeah. So I was why not a bike squad with a Sanguinary Priest with a Thunderhammer? That sounds pretty fun. I mean, I don't know. I don't necessarily think it's competitive again, but I bet it's fun.
Yeah,
absolutely.
So, 40k is supposed to be fun.
I hope you win that argument. Andrew, if you're listening,
let's have crazy crap. I want my Ironclad Dreadnoughts and Classic Land Speeders.
Go with it.
It doesn't...
Bring the Falchion back out.
Yeah, I was going to say, no one... I do not think anyone with any Legends in their list will win the event. If that happens, I'll eat my hat.
Yeah.
So...
Bring the Thunderhawk. That's not even Legends.
Oh, that's true. Yeah, that's not even Legends.
Right. Okay, so on that note, I think we should end it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you very much for watching. If you liked it, click the like. If you disliked it, I don't care. If you've got things that I missed and got wrong, I still don't care, but please tell me about it in the comments.
Yep.
If you've got something nice to say, please say that in the comments. If you've got a question, please say that in the comments. If you just want to say hello and feed the great algorithm above, please click one of the buttons.
And we always appreciate that stuff, yeah.
We do. Remember, you can join the channel if you want. You've got a Patreon where you'll get absolutely no rewards, but we do listen to you if you tell us you want us to make an episode, and we do try and make them.
Yep.
Yeah, so any of those things
basically
will help.
If you find us amusing, if you find our rambling fun, if it helps you while away the time, just think about chucking us a few quid for like coffees and whatnot through Patreon or joining the channel and it'll help us get more material to make more amusing shit for you to listen to.
Like the old world Orky box that I quite fancy. So yeah, subscribe responsibly. Don't forget to have fun with your hobby. It's not supposed to be a job. And we'll catch you on the next one.
Indeed, when we figure out what the fuck it's going to be.
We know what it's going to be. I've already decided that.
Oh yeah, we have, haven't we? Yeah, that's true. We know what we're going to do. Shit.
We do. Look at that.
Cheers, guys.
All right. See you next one.
To the next one.